Well, yeah, I don't really have one of those fancy setups for my StreamYard setup.
Oh my goodness.
So I need to play around with that and figure out how that works.
I don't at all. I just use the OBS with all the basics.
Man, some people have some really awesome stuff going on with OBS at this point. I would like to do all that stuff, but like honestly, the computer I have is just not capable of it. So I need to get an M1 Mac or something like that, or maybe just an upgraded Mac.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it looks like so here's Sean. And I'm gonna go ahead and add him. Ooh, there's Sean. What's up, man?
Hey, Sean.
Hey, gang. This is my M1 Mac, so I'm trying to make sure that my new setup is fine. How's everyone doing?
You're in a different room than usual, or at least a different background than usual.
This is my old office, and then I turned around to my new office with the standing desk.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's I lost the whole neon thing that we had going on for a while, that everyone was in purple.
Oh yeah. I don't know, the galaxy lights, they look good today. It's like such a hit or miss thing. Some days they look very vibrant, other days they don't.
Yeah.
I'm about to make a banner.
Yeah, you can make a banner. You can make it scroll if you want it in the footer, and then you can select people's comments if they're coming in.
Fancy.
You both have used this before, right?
Yeah. But I've always used Matt's links before. I've never set up my own or anything like that.
Yeah.
All right, there we go.
Cool.
All right, so I'm going to now send out a tweet to get a few more people to come through here. What should we call? I guess we can call this the Amplify Community plus Developer Advocate Open Discussion, because we're going to be having some people from the AWS community join us, like the community builders and stuff.
Have you linked this? Have you linked this up to, like, I don't know, Twitch, YouTube, Periscope?
Yeah, it's we're now streaming on Twitch, YouTube, and Periscope, and I've announced this in the Community Builders Slack channel, and I'm about to shoot out a tweet, and then we can kind of get going. I probably should have done this maybe a few minutes ago, huh?
It's early. It's early.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess not for Sean, but.
All right, cool. Sending that out. So we are going to kind of do a very casual, live discussion, and we don't really have anything to present here, but we do want to kind of just, have questions coming in and try to address, whatever questions people want us to chat about. I was thinking it might be cool to kind of talk about not only AWS related stuff, but like maybe some career stuff. And then we're going to also be bringing in some community builders. So
I wonder if it makes sense to also simulcast this on Clubhouse.
Is there a way to do that?
I don't know. Just turn on your phone.
Well, we could all do that, I guess. I thought you were so against Clubhouse. John,
I dislike parts of it, but I get why it's successful, and I think that Natter is doing a really good job organizing a community.
Agreed. I think it's
honestly
fun.
The Clubhouse. Okay, so like I read Sean wrote like the thing about Clubhouse, and I was like,
too harsh? Was it too harsh?
No, it was so good. It was so good.
Good.
Yeah. I started thinking about it. I was like, what is it like that I'm drawn to? And I think one thing that I noticed that I feel like isn't really on some of these other platforms is the authenticity of the people that are there. Because on Twitter, there's a lot of bots and there's a lot of trolls and a lot of people with fake profiles. But you can't really do that on Clubhouse because you're like a person and you have like linked your phone number and you have your face. So some of the things that are drawbacks are also maybe lending a little bit more authenticity. And when you look to Twitter and like all the stuff that's happened over the past few years with fake accounts and stuff like that, one of the things I like about Clubhouse is that everyone is like a real person, and that like it kind of makes me feel a little more comfortable being there for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, I really like it because, there are definitely issues with it. I don't like the accessibility and the like invite onlyness and the no Android piece of it. That being said, what I really like about it is like Medium and Dev2 made it much easier to blog, where you no longer need to build your own platform to do so. And you just have this really nice platform to do it for you. It gets bubbled up to the right audiences. And I feel like Clubhouse kind of does that for podcasting. Like you don't need a fancy mic. You don't need an editor. You don't need to have a co-host. You can just invite random people up. You don't necessarily need to build the audience too much yourself, because it's recommended for people on the homepage. So I don't know. I feel like it's like an easier way to podcast, because podcasting is a lot of work.
Agreed.
It would be cool if
agreed with those points.
It would be cool if there was like a Clubhouse for video, or is there?
I think that might be Twitch. I think we might be doing that right now.
Well, but like Twitch is a place to go watch, but what about a place to allow people to join you, like we're doing now? I guess like a more
you can add 10
like
people.
StreamYard, but with a little less friction.
Do you find there's a lot of friction in StreamYard though?
Well, with StreamYard, you can join and watch other people's streams, but there's no live feed of streams that are happening and things like that, and you can't discover other StreamYard people. It's not like a social network, right?
I have a feeling with their new partnership, if that's the right word, that maybe that will start to grow a little more.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty simple for me to bring you on, and this might be a good time for us to start introducing ourselves. So like, we'll do a quick round of intros. So I'm Nader Dabbit. I'm a senior developer advocate on the Amplify Developer Advocate team. I've been here about 3 years, and yeah, that's me.
You're supposed to popcorn it.
Oh yeah, Allie, you go next.
I'm Allie. I'm also a senior developer advocate on the Amplify team. I don't know. What else am I supposed to say? I'll popcorn it to Sean.
I mean, you have a huge bio, so either you go into all of it or you kind of like make it short, because you've done a lot of amazing things.
I hang out on the internet sometimes.
Yeah, we're all too online. I'm Sean. I'm on Allie and Nader's team, and I'm happy to be here. And I'm not in purple. That's I need a purple filter to put on my camera.
You used to be.
Here, let me switch my colors while y'all are talking.
Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Sorry, I'm Alex, founder of CodingCat Dev, and we have a podcast called Perfect.dev, and also on the AWS Community Builder team, or community, I should say, not team.
Yeah, that's a good time to plug the Amplify or the AWS Community Builder program. So AWS launched kind of a community program to give people within the community that are doing cool stuff a little bit more, access to kind of do more things by giving them credits and bringing them into a program that kind of helps, I guess, get into discussion rooms. Like we have a Slack channel, also a little bit more visibility in the community, and also a path to get on to what is the AWS Heroes program, which is even like a higher level program. And the AWS Heroes program, if you join that, you end up getting, at least in the past, you would get flown out to like reInvent. You would get a lot more stuff going on, and a lot of like job and consulting opportunities would typically come out of it. And I think actually the Community Builder program, I've seen a ton of consulting and job opportunities actually coming through there lately, which is pretty cool. So if you're doing AWS stuff and you want to join that, Google it. There's a link to kind of join. And if you are a community builder and you're watching and you want to join this chat right now, you can jump into the Slack channel, and I put a link for the StreamYard there. So
I was going to say it's fairly new too. So if you're looking to kind of get into a community that's starting to build itself from the ground up, it's a good time for it, especially backed by a large corporation in AWS.
So do y'all want to talk about the new CEO of AWS, or is that something we can talk about here?
Nice.
How did it shake out? So Bezos stepped down, and AWS's CEO at that time took his place. Is that what I've been hearing? And we don't have a AWS CEO now, or do I have that wrong?
It's like
Yeah, I mean,
away.
I think he starts taking over as the CEO in like the third quarter, so he has like maybe 6 more months. So I think between now and then, they have a few people that they are considering, and from what I've seen internally, there's like a person, and I don't really know who this person is that well, but everyone keeps saying their name, so I'm assuming that's going to be the person. But it is interesting. We have like an internal memes channel, and that channel is like blown up over the last 24 hours with funny things happening, talking about the situation.
I think the best part is whenever we do product launches, Andy Jassy responds with nice, just like one word in the email. And so everybody yesterday was like responding with nice to him becoming CEO.
For me, the surprise was I actually genuinely expected Amazon to be spinning off AWS at some point, and this is definitely not that. So, yeah, it's staying one company, I guess.
There's way too much revenue coming in there, right?
I don't know. I thought it was like, of all the big tech cases, that was probably like the best case to be made, and they're not going for it. So I don't have any insider info.
Kilo just joined us.
Just woke up.
Yeah, this is still kind of early for East Coast. I mean, for West Coast people. And I mean, it's interesting. And I want Kilo or Kyle, I don't know what you want to go by publicly, but to give an intro, and then I want to kind of talk about our distributed team.
Yeah, so I'm Kyle Lee, or Kilo Loco. That's my online presence, and my background is mostly in iOS, and I'm now a senior developer advocate on the Amplify team, and I'm focused on trying to get more content out there to help everybody understand how awesome Amplify is for iOS, Android, and Flutter.
It's a very strong intro. Yeah, and you have a great YouTube channel.
Thanks. I try.
So it's interesting because everybody on our team is remote, and right now it's very, very distributed. But with Sean all the way in Singapore, I'm in Mississippi, Allie's in Chicago, and Kyle is over there in Los Angeles. Kind of jealous of everybody that isn't in Mississippi right now.
I'm jealous of everybody that's not in Chicago. The snowbanks right now are taller than I am. It's ridiculous. It's disgusting.
Wow.
It's freezing in Michigan, so I'm with Allie.
So, I mean, I know that you prepared a few questions. Do you want to kind of start shooting some of that stuff over, or is there a topic that anyone wanted to talk about to start off? And if anyone has any questions in there in Twitch, shoot them into Twitch. I'm not sure if people are asking questions in YouTube. I might open that up as well. But yeah.
Yeah, in StreamYard, Natter, you can just click on comments and you can see them all, and then you can actually pop them in as they float in from either.
Wow, that's pretty sweet, and that was super easy to do. How did I not know that? I like StreamYard.
Yeah, that's what we use on Fridays for our live coding for AWS Community. So check that out if you haven't.
I'm going to pick the funniest comments to start showing those. But do you want to start us off with a question, Alex, or a discussion topic?
Sure. I mean, I just started carving out some thoughts because I love the idea around developer advocacy or dev avocados, as people like to say. So I threw together a few questions, but obviously we can kind of flow it out here. So first question is, do you need to build up a great resume of speaking and presenting before even thinking of becoming a developer advocate?
I actually was going to ask this question on Twitter soon because I feel like I get this question a lot when I do like podcasts and stuff, like how do you become a developer advocate? And I'm always just like, I was doing the job before I had the job, and that's kind of what I was doing with code too before I had a coding job. But I want to know if there are developer advocates who transitioned in a different way, because I think for most people that I know, they were just doing the job for a while and then finally got it as their job title.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened with me. Nader ended up reaching out to me after I had gotten laid off last year, and I already was doing YouTube and just putting out content, and then just to have him reach out, I didn't even know about the position, to be honest, and I didn't know any such thing had existed. And then he reaches out, and then he lists out all these the description of the job title. I'm like, you guys pay people to do this?
That's the way I felt.
I'm sold. So, yeah. I mean, I would love to hear like, somebody that didn't have a strong background before they even got into it. So,
I'll volunteer myself. Some people may not know that I actually never gave a conference talk before joining Amplify as a developer advocate. I did 3 meetup talks in New York, and then a bit of blogging, and then even just from there, they reached out to me. And initially, it was for a different role, but I think we just negotiated that they would try me out for the dev advocacy role, and then I just stayed. So I think there's many ways to get in there. Just you do have to put yourself out a little bit so that people can see that you're comfortable doing that before you get the job, I think. But it's not a requirement.
Yeah.
It's interesting here, the different paths throughout there. I see like a lot of people presenting at conferences and things like that, which it seems to fit for the dev advocate role. But it's kind of cool to hear your story too.
I think people have this like over emphasis on conferences for dev advocacy. That's clearly a big part of the job. But you can be a really good dev advocate and speak at no conferences if you're just great at demos or like talking to big customers, writing blog posts. I don't see it as a necessary part of the job. So if you want to do the whole speaking thing, then you don't have to.
Yeah, that's true. Like there's all kinds of stuff you can do. You can talk and speak at conferences. You can give workshops. You can do live streams. You can do videos. You can write blog posts. You can contribute to documentation. You can just do community outreach, GitHub issues. There's actually a ton of stuff, and that kind of makes it a little overwhelming. You do try to like focus on everything. But like I would say, if you're looking to get a job as a developer advocate, kind of look at what other developer advocates are doing and then kind of start doing it if you can, like in your free time or maybe on the job. Talk to your employer and see if they'll allow you to kind of write blog posts and if they'll allow you to speak at events and even speaking at meetups. Like for me, it was really like I never was able to speak at a conference just starting off. I actually wanted to speak at meetups, and in order to speak at a meetup, I just started my own meetup and I just started talking to the people that would show up to that. So I started my own meetup and then got comfortable talking and put a few of those videos out. And then when I applied to speak at a conference, I could link to the video of me speaking at my own meetup. And then they were like, oh, okay, this person has at least spoken before. So they feel a little more comfortable bringing you in. And then it kind of starts snowballing, I guess, as you give more and more talks and stuff. And then if you apply for a developer advocate role and you've already spoken at a couple of events and you've already written a few blog posts, it just makes it easier for them to know that you would be someone that will be successful and that will be, able to kind of handle the type of things that you'll be doing on the day-to-day basis. Someone asked a question, do you see possible transitioning from solutions architect to evangelism and developer advocacy? And yeah, absolutely. In fact, someone within AWS on the containers team, I believe, went through that transition, and he's very successful now as a developer advocate. And I think it kind of overlaps a lot. So if you're a solutions architect and you're out there creating reference architectures and you're probably doing a lot of writing and a lot of communicating, like all of those things, transition directly, I think, into the role of a developer advocate. And honestly, the favorite part for me is meeting people and hanging out with people and traveling. And we're not traveling right now, which sucks really bad. So I keep looking forward to when we're going to start traveling again, because like I was literally, I mean, I was traveling too much before, but I was all over I got to see the world. Whereas before I did this, I didn't travel at all. I've been to like Japan. I've been to like all over Europe. I would go to India, all these awesome places. And the company pays for that for me to go do that. So to me, that's like a really cool thing. And I don't even sugarcoat it. Like, that's one of the things I like about it. But I'm not doing it now.
I've heard a lot of advocates say like that was one of the biggest reasons they got into it, was the travel aspect. So 2020 was really, really hard on kind of that decision for them, even taking like massive pay cuts to get into it just so that they could see the world and speak and do what they're passionate about. And then it all shut down. So a lot of bummed dev advocates out there right now. That kind of ties into an additional question that I somewhat had. So, do you find that switching to a dev advocate role, and I know this might not apply in the AWS because they have such a good program, but is it worth taking a salary cut to do it? And I guess along that lines, do you find that trying to get into like a company like AWS or Microsoft or any of the FANG corporations, it's super difficult to get into those dev advocate roles, but would it make more sense to try to become a dev advocate at a startup and take that hit, but then work your way up so that you can actually get paid and travel and those fun things along that journey?
Ali, what's your take? Or Kyle, anybody?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I personally think that it's all about like, what do you really enjoy doing? It's like in my opinion, it all comes down to like, are you gonna be happy waking up, and doing your job? Like, are you gonna be just happier, right? And if you really enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't really feel like work, and at some point you have to realize that, money is not everything. So if you can just focus on what things are going to make you the happiest, and if you think that being a developer advocate, helping other people learn how to use technology, and that is something that you find more preferable to just regular engineering stuff, like feature requests, then I would say, yeah, it's definitely worth taking a pay cut. But this is my first role as a developer advocate. I started after being laid off, and it's like, I feel like it's my calling. So yeah, I think I would have taken a pay cut, but at the same time, I haven't come from an engineering position where I had to take a pay cut. It was like a pay increase, if anything, to join the team. So that's just my background, but I feel like my perspective is, if it's something that you're going to really enjoy, then money's not everything. Do something that's going to make you happy.
Yeah, I think my perspective is really different because I was actually pretty resistant to becoming a developer advocate for a while. Like, I had my audience built up. I had been speaking for a while. I had been blogging and getting millions of readers a year, like, before I became a developer advocate. And so I think I was really afraid of the ownership piece of it, to be honest. I really wanted to have complete control over what I was doing content-wise, and still having it be really true to myself and being able to do what I want to do. And so that was something that I really had to make sure I would have in transitioning to this role. And this was like all my questions for Natter when we were chatting about this role in the first place, was like, do I still have control over my content? And so that for me was the biggest consideration, because otherwise I probably would have been considering more like self-employment than another developer job or something like that.
Yeah, I think it depends on your situation. Like, if you're financially able and like not caring about money, that's a completely different discussion for some people. But if if I don't know, like, I probably would say that I would not have taken maybe a pay cut to do this, to be honest. When it comes to like my long term, what I want to do. But in the short term, I did, I guess, take a pay cut because I was doing consulting, but I was a lot more stressed out. And I took a little bit of a pay cut. And then, but the knowledge and stuff I think that I'm gaining, if I wanted to go back into consulting, I would be able to start charging a lot more, and I would probably have a lot better connections and success. And I've also literally, like, being a developer advocate, like, allows you to basically build your knowledge and build your brand on at the same time that you're kind of helping out the company that you're working for. So when I joined here, I had like 2,000 Twitter followers, and I didn't really have much of an audience. And now I feel like I have much larger of a network of people that I know and that I feel like are like my friends almost. People that I feel like that I could just send a message and ask a question, and they would be completely cool, like helping me out because we've built some type of relationship and stuff. And those relationships are not, you can't build those type of relationships a lot of times if you're focusing on like an engineer working on something full time. Maybe you can, but I would say it's a lot harder because literally, like, part of our job is to be out there meeting people and stuff. So that's another thing that I really, I guess, like about it. But we do have a few questions that are starting to build up. So let's go ahead and maybe answer some of those. So do you miss being a coder, meaning no speaking engagement, teaching, et cetera? And I'll hit on this real quick, and I'm curious what other people think. But for me, I actually spend a lot of time coding. I spend at least maybe 1 or 2 days of my day, of my week, full-time coding. And I always try to code and learn new stuff that's difficult. And that's actually, if it wasn't part of the job, I wouldn't be here. So
yeah, same, and including like pull requests for Amplify too. I have one of those pending right now. So if any of our engineers are listening, would love if that was merged. Just kidding. No, so we do still get to write a ton of code, and a lot of code for demos, and beyond that, making it so that developers are more productive on what we do. Like, we can get our hands dirty and all that. I mean, I do in some ways miss some pieces of it, like the anonymity of it to some extent. Like, I struggle a lot with the public nature of being a developer advocate, but I like having balance, and I like being able to work with people a little bit more than you get to as a developer.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about thanks Rahul for calling out the learning public thing. Yeah, it's really great, and it's not just me, it's everyone else. Yeah, I just want to call out the speaking engagements part. I didn't realize, but I spoke at 20 events last year, just because conferences went remote and meetups went remote. So actually it was easier because, like, I spoke at meetups in like Egypt, in Egypt, but like, they're just like, people organizing from there, and you don't have to travel. So maybe it was easier. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but the previous question was about speaking engagements. So I just wanted to offer that perspective. And yeah, you do a lot of coding for that. I think maybe the difference is that we don't maintain production applications. It's a lot about like talking to people who do it, talking to the engineers who are working on the solutions for those things, and then presenting them in a way that's accessible. Giving feedback before something's publicly launched. That's a lot of what DAs do as well.
Yeah, I think that there's obviously still a lot of coding in like developer advocacy positions. I've learned a lot just in the 8 months that I've been a developer advocate, just in regards to all kinds of different new technologies. But I'm coding every single day. I'm learning something new every single day. And I personally don't miss being just a coder, right? Because like my last position, I was, an iOS developer, and most of the iOS development work was just, feature requests. And, there's a lot of the times where you just end up going through a feature and like you don't care about that feature, and it's just like, let me just get this thing out the door as fast as I can. So personally, I don't miss it like at all, just being a coder.
Another question, we have a few coming in. How can I measure my success as a developer advocate? Yeah, I mean, this is probably the number one question that we get asked actually from internal management as well, but also within the industry. I don't think this question has like a clear answer, to be completely honest. So if you kind of look at some of the bigger companies that are like trying to answer this, they don't have an answer, is I guess what I'm saying either. But I guess I can give you kind of what my take on this would be. I think that if you are able to have over a long period of time, a community of people that are giving you feedback on the thing that you're kind of trying to improve and build, and you kind of have a steady stream of feedback, and you're able to channel that feedback to the engineering team and have them improve the thing that you're working on. That's like the ultimate like metric for me, because just doing that is going to end up resulting probably in a large number of users over time, or at least an increasing number of users over time. Because if you have a decent idea and you're able to iterate on that over time, I think one of the big things I think I've learned at AWS is that when you launch something, it's never going to be as good as you want it to be, but over time it can be that. And when you first release something, it's probably not going to be fitting all of the needs, but if you continue iterating and improving over a long period of time, you end up with something that's really nice. So it's kind of like that long-term vision versus the short-term vision. And I think success as a developer advocate is helping to improve that by bringing the feedback back to the engineering teams and helping them prioritize the features that the customers actually want versus what an engineer thinks that they might want. And I think that also, it's really good to call out the team that we have here is just like really, really awesome to work with. And they're very, very receptive to kind of like the feedback that we give them. And they're very smart, and they're able to kind of like, balance the feedback we're giving them as well as their own ingenuity. And they have this idea of like innovating on behalf of the customer here at AWS. And a lot of that happens within our team. Like ideas that I never would have thought of or that people might not have asked for are also often added to the things that we're working on that end up being successful because of the people that are on our team, like the engineers and stuff, product managers.
I think it might be a little cheesy for me to say this, but I find it super true as well. Measuring success as a developer advocate, like we've talked a lot about how to become one and what a developer advocate is to each of us, but being successful, like if you can help a single developer that day, it's successful. I mean, that's what your goal is. It's to make an easier path for all those developers that are out there and helping them in, GitHub on an issue or diving into Discord or any of that. That's going to be the biggest key. And that's what the goal of a developer advocate is. It's advocating for developers out there.
So I will pose this question to Allie and Kyle. What is the rough breakdown of what a developer advocate day looks like, and what is the work-life balance?
I feel like, at least for me, every single day is wildly different. There's a lot of meetings, a lot of talking to different people, both internally and externally. There's writing code. That's a big piece of this for demos. And then there's like recording talks, there's recording podcast episodes, there's writing blog posts, there's recording YouTube videos, there's recording course things, there's prepping, there's bubbling feedback back up to the people in charge. I think the biggest tip I can say, though, is to repurpose content as much as possible. So make the same content in different formats and targeted towards different audiences. So some that is more beginner friendly or more advanced, and maybe have a blog post that's about one feature of something and a blog post that's about the whole entire build process, so that you're getting the most out of what you're creating. So every day is super different, at least for me. Work-life balance, I think, is tough. And I've talked about this a little bit, that it's, at least for me, a big part of my job is like my personal brand or whatever, and putting stuff out on social media and making sure to keep working on that. And then it's really hard to detach, especially during the time of COVID where most life is happening online. Like it's very hard to separate. And so that's probably the most difficult part for me, but I don't know. I try to be a little bit more work-life balance than I used to, at least. Kyle, how about you?
I never really like the work-life balance question on anything because I just overdo it. I always overdo it, especially like with this role. So I really enjoy being a developer advocate, putting out videos, trying to help people as much as I can. Just I get questions and comments, and when I don't know something, I try to go out there and figure it out. So like a day in the life for me kind of looks like me waking up at 8:10 and realizing, oh crap, I missed this StreamYard meeting that I have to get into so I could be on here talking. And then after that, I have to, I'll probably like take an hour or two for like breakfast and time with the family. And then after that, it's just like whatever I can think of in a way to help somebody, whether it be videos, blog posts, or just hanging out like on the Amplify Discord or something like that. That's the way that I choose to help. But if I had to like make like just how Ali was saying, where every day is different, if I were to do one of those YouTube videos where it's like a day in the life of a developer advocate, I would have to do a week in the life of a developer advocate because it's just so different from day to day, just so that you can see how differently each day is. Like it's just something completely different. Some days I'm more laid back, and other days I try to do a little bit more. So yeah, it's just really different. But I think it is all up to you and how effective you feel that you can be with your time.
We have a few more questions. So looks like we're having some good questions about developer advocacy here, which is pretty cool. So I'll go ahead and continue with some of those. This one's about content creation process. I think that, again, Ali and Kyle both have really good feedback here. So I'm curious about your answer to this. Is it as simple as idea, build, and then share? Like, what's your process?
Well, drop the word simple for starters. That's at least the bare minimum. It definitely, I think that the outside looking in regards to content creation, at least like in videos, blog posts, I think the easiest thing is honestly to do a podcast or a live stream. Like those are the things that I've done, and you can just start playing and then just have something to do or talk about, and you'll be good. But in regards to like blog posts and podcasts, I found that those are like the hardest things for me to put out, because what you have to do is you have to first understand the technology that you're going to be covering, right? Then what I do is I build out that technology like a full application, or like whatever the entire process is going to be that I'm going to be teaching. And then I have to go back and explain that process. And then if you're writing it, right, you want to make sure that you're explaining things properly and that you're very clear and you're using the right words and you're not being redundant. You also want to get it checked by other people. And if you're doing video, well, then after you record it, then you have to go to editing, and then you have to do like all the post-production and then upload it and all this other stuff. So I wouldn't say that it's easy, but it's doable by anybody, and you don't need like professional equipment to get started. I think that you can just get started and just go through the process yourself. See which one of the ways that you like to release content yourself, and then try it out for yourself, and just try to be consistent, and I think you'll be okay.
Okay, cool. So let's see here. This is an interesting question. So what are the challenges for the developer advocate role during the COVID pandemic? And I think that Ali and Kyle both joined during the pandemic, and they probably have some interesting insight here, because it is a lot different actually than it used to be. For instance, like us as a team, we used to go to Seattle like every month or two and just hang out and just be on site and stuff. We also used to meet each other in like really cool places and get to hang out. So I felt like there was more of like a little bit more of like a camaraderie, basically just because in person, anything is going to build a little bit more camaraderie with the whole team. So being in Seattle, hanging out, like, exchanging ideas, being in a room when people come up with an idea and then actually see it come to fruition, being in the room with those people and then seeing it happen, and even like naming something and then like seeing the name go out there and become, something people talk about on social media. Those types of things are super cool, and you don't really get those during this pandemic. Also, just any job, I think at all, or every single person in the whole world right now is probably just dealing with a lot of anxiety and emotions and things like that are just going to differ from person to person. So I think you have to just be a lot more empathetic with everybody that you come in contact with. So like for me, that just means if someone does something or whatever that I feel like annoys me, like give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think like stuff like that goes a long way.
Yeah, last year, or I guess in 2019, which is not last year anymore, but before COVID, which feels like last year, I lived at conferences for a while. So I had so many speaking gigs that I didn't have a permanent address or anything like that. I literally just like would stay at a hotel for a conference and then move to the next hotel for a conference. And that's definitely very, very different than what is going on right now without traveling at all for the near term. But I really like the opportunities that it provides in a lot of ways, that it allows anybody to participate in the content from anywhere. And I think that's really awesome. And I also think that the idea of us making more asynchronous content like blog posts and YouTube videos and spending more time on that than speaking might go a little bit further too. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
I started this role in the pandemic, so I think it's just kind of weird in general to just have a 100% remote job where you've never met any of your teammates like face to face. It just feels the entire interview process was online, never met anybody on the team. So just in general, like to have a job position where it's complete remote just feels kind of weird. But other than that, I think that, I haven't really been able to experience going out to conferences. Like I would have really loved to have gone to reInvent for the first time last year. I hear that it's like a really big thing, and I think I would have had a lot of fun. So that's just something that I look forward to once the whole quarantine situation is lifted.
Cool. Yeah, we have a bunch of questions about other stuff as well, some having to do with like remote stuff and virtual events. I mean, yeah, I think that some people have been able to enhance the virtual event experience, and I'm like guessing that when things go back to normal, that'll just be like a hybrid of like virtual and in-person stuff. So like if you hold an in-person event, you're also probably going to find a way to stream it and make it accessible to people everywhere. And then like the value add of coming to the event in person is networking and hanging out with people and having a good time. I mean, a lot of if you remember how in my opinion, the economy was like headed before the pandemic, it was focused a lot on experiences, and like the experience of like doing something is like completely gone away because we're not doing anything. So I think when things get back to normal, that it's going to actually have a lot more of these in-person events again. And and it's not like you go there to learn stuff. You do learn stuff, but you go there to make relationships with people and hang out and have a good time. And while you're there, you end up learning. And I think a lot of companies were even sending their employees there. It's kind of like a perk, like, of course they're going there to learn, but at the same time, certain people at your company do want to do this stuff. And kind of having a company, for me at least, when I was as an engineer, when I went to one of the startups I worked with, they had a budget and they would pay for me to go to 2 events a year. And to me, that was like one of the reasons why I was excited about working there. So this is Renee, and Renee is one of the engineers on our team. Also product manager. I'm not sure. He does a little bit of everything, even a little bit of advocacy as well. How do you keep a balance between content output and playing with new stuff?
I try to have the playing with new stuff contribute to something that I can content output. Like, it doesn't always end up that way, especially if something is in the early stages or has like a lot of bugs still with it. But for the most part, I'm trying to build something that in theory could go out and be a demo someday. It's definitely tough to balance though. I'm trying to add more like learning time to my calendar, but right now the number of meetings that I'm in is a lot.
A lot of the time, in regards to learning new stuff, like that's what most of my content is consistent of. So like I'll be trying to mix in some of the new stuff with like what we're doing here at Amplify and just see how these two things work together. And that's like a majority of how I put together content. So Flutter's relatively new. I've been doing a lot of stuff with Flutter, so I've been learning a lot about Flutter, and I've been putting out videos. Same thing goes for Android with Jetpack Compose. Been learning a lot of Jetpack Compose, and I'm trying to put Jetpack Compose in and Amplify together. And on the iOS platform, Swift UI, anything that's new with Swift UI, let's see how that works with Amplify. And I just kind of mash things together and like see how they work, and then that allows me to kind of get some stuff out there about Amplify and see how things work, but also get to play with the new things. So I try to mix them together.
I think one of the parts that I struggle with, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I often have to like break down the differences on content as I put it out. So if I'm doing like live coding, that's no problem. Like it can almost just go out there and we don't have to edit it or anything like that. However, when I'm putting together like just a quick thought, something I played with, that's more like a tutorial for me, and I put that in a tutorial section for the site. But if I start like really playing with something and I'm like, this is difficult, I need to walk people through this. Now I'm like writing down notes and like chapters and sections in my head to start to break that content down. So it does become difficult if you spend like a week worth of time building out this thing. And then, as you said before, you have to go all the way back through and vet it out before you want to let that content out there. Otherwise, people are like, oh, this is garbage. And they don't have really any clue on how long that actually took you to like go from inception through this whole build out phase and then break down the content to create it all. So it's difficult to find both flavors of that, but that's how I usually break it down.
I also think this might be a good question for you, since you're heavily like in the, you're doing your own thing and you have your channel, and I believe you're also doing consulting and stuff. But I know you're very plugged into the community and stuff. But the question is, how do you see the market for Amplify? Is it a skill in demand? And I'll give like my quick thoughts on this, and then I definitely want to hear Alex's. I mean, I think the real question is, how do you see the market for AWS and cloud computing? Because when you're working with Amplify, like we're not really offering you that much different than what AWS already offers you. We're just kind of making it a lot easier. And me personally, if you look at some of the consulting stuff that I've talked about in the past and why I kind of joined AWS, the demand for cloud computing is continuing to go up. And I know people that are consulting and they're charging in the range of like 200 to 1,000 an hour. And I would, if I go back into consulting, I want to be on the high end of that. And I think that you have to kind of be really good to charge that rate. But the demand is very, very much there for sure for cloud. And I think that with Amplify, the goal for us is to kind of make the barrier to entry lower for people that want to build out these full stack applications. And our focus is kind of not only on lowering the barrier to entry, but to kind of making it to where front end developers are traditionally front end or non-cloud computing developers, or maybe even full stack developers can build in the same way that more experienced developers can.
Yeah, the market question is kind of interesting. So as you guys know, I'm also a Firebase GDE, and that product maybe has a little bit of a head start, if you will. So kind of to explain that out a little further, Firebase is sitting on top of Google Cloud Platform over there, and it's a really easy way to start to get into that process. And when I look at Amplify, it's the same thing for AWS. Excuse me, sorry. But when you talk about the infrastructure as code and the CloudFormation pieces and how much it's changed just in a short amount of time and how many features have been added, I keep saying, and we talked about this when you were on the podcast, Nader. Sorry, I gotta take a drink. When you were on the podcast, we talked about, okay, if you get started, and AWS Amplifies makes that really easy to get started. At what point is it not enough, or is it too much? And we talked through how we could kind of build up an entire site, and then as you need more resources, you could almost eject from AWS Amplify. But if I find, and in the consulting work that I do all day long with my real job, my day job at OST, what we're finding more of is that people want to get started with their business need that they have for Amplify, but then they're like, oh, but we also want to add, and we want to add, and we want to add. And Amplify is set up now so you can extend out any part of that CloudFormation stack that you want. And so you can use the full tool set of AWS. So you kind of have two wins there. You have one, you can get up and running very quickly, and you don't need like a full staff to understand all of serverless and what AWS Cloud has to offer. But then the second part is you can take and extend what you do have out there and just continue growing that product. And because CI/CD is built into it from the get-go in different environments and idea around team, it's set up for success. So I see AWS as kind of the next up and coming as we keep going.
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal, one of the big things that we're focusing on this year is extensibility story there. So yeah, Amplify has like a first class set of features that we support, but you can actually extend it, like you said, to use pretty much anything within AWS. But it's actually a little harder than we would like it to be, or a lot harder actually, because if I'm like a brand new developer, I end up having to kind of know a lot about AWS to extend it, to add the things that we don't support yet. So one of the big things that we're focusing on this year is to make that extensibility story a lot better, so you can pretty much take advantage of all of the AWS ecosystem and build out whatever you want. Whoa, that's a big question. I think I just covered up half of the people's faces, so I'll probably get rid of this one. But I have a question about Amplify and AppSync. When I start with Amplify, I'm using AppSync, correct? But there are some examples which are based on Amplify, other which shows using AppSync directly. Are there any differences or limitations when I start a project with Amplify, and can I use both technologies? Yeah, this is a question that actually comes up a lot, because it's almost like when you think of Firebase as an example, like you mentioned a second ago. When Firebase first started, it was just a database, right? And then now it's kind of a suite of services, and Firestore is a database. But with Amplify, we went the opposite direction. We started with Amplify, and then we added the ability to have a first-class access to different data sources. And AppSync is just a GraphQL as a service. It's kind of like a backend as a service you could think of. And it's one of the many data sources that you can use with Amplify. So you can use AppSync with CDK. You can use AppSync with serverless framework. You can use AppSync alone, or you can use AppSync with Amplify. So it's kind of its own service that you can use by itself, or you can use it with Amplify. With Amplify, you can have two main types of APIs that we support first class: a REST API that can talk to pretty much any database that you would like, DynamoDB, Aurora, Postgres, Elasticsearch, whatever. And then you can also use AppSync, which has a set of first-class data sources that are supported. So we have DynamoDB, serverless Aurora, which is like Postgres or MySQL, Elasticsearch. And then one of the data sources is Lambda with AppSync, meaning you can map a GraphQL operation into a Lambda function. And then from a Lambda function, you have access to all of AWS. And over the weekend, I actually used that stack to build out a Clubhouse clone, because the only API I needed to build Clubhouse that wasn't already part of Amplify was the Chime SDK. And to basically use the Chime SDK, you need to basically map permissions from a function into Chime, which is a service. And then from that service, you can do stuff like create a message room. You can create, an attendee within a room. You can close the room, all the things kind of like Clubhouse does. And it was like pretty simple, because Lambda is the ultimate like layer to kind of get into the cloud, and having access to Lambda within AppSync or API Gateway is just super powerful. And it's kind of like my favorite thing to do, really, like working in Lambda.
Can you talk? We had another question kind of back and forth in the Community Builder program. Some of the biggest pain points are always around cognito in Amplify. Can you guys talk a little bit about maybe what's upcoming, or if there's new features coming out in cognito, and especially through Amplify?
Yeah, that's a great question, and another interesting discussion. I mean, Amplify, like I mentioned a second ago, is just a layer on top of AWS. So we kind of are not tied really closely to many of the services that are already there, other than, I would say, within our team, AWS Mobile, AWS Front and Web and Mobile. We do support a few services like AppSync, Device Farm, and we also support Amplify Hosting, which is a service. So those three services are a lot easier for us to kind of get leeway and getting onto the roadmap, the things that we want to see changed. So if there's something that AppSync doesn't have that we want it to have, I can just reach over to the engineering team and like start, hammering it away. Like, oh, we need this, we need this, we need this. But with Cognito, that's a completely separate team. And for us to get something on their radar and their roadmap is a lot more work. And it's not as closely tied to the roadmap that we would like to have, that they have, that we would like. So a lot of the work that we do is internally trying to get our feature requests through these other service teams so Amplify can get better. And welcome to the stage. We have another, community builder, Ben.
Hey, thank you. I was one of those people that was asking about Cognito in the Community Builder Slack, so I thought I'd jump in because I'm having the same experience that you're describing there, right? Where for some things, if you want to use Cognito, especially if you want to use it client side, then using Amplify, even if it's only the JavaScript part of it, is like the easiest way. Until you run into some roadblocks, and then it's like, I don't know what kind of library I should be using just to get, like, I know like all the separate APIs are there and all the separate components are there. And if I was writing it, like just doing the HTTP requests for like every different service, I know like the order. And then you need to put that together in a way that you can actually show to people, say like, hey, for example, I now want to use this in my frontend app. And then there's not a really clear way to get all the power of Cognito with all the convenience of Amplify.
Yeah, Cognito has been around for a while, and it has it's pretty successful project. But there's a lot of things that I want added that are not there yet. For instance, I want GitHub OAuth support for user pools, so I want people to be able to sign up with Google just like they can sign up with sign up with GitHub the same way they can sign up with Google and Facebook and so on and so forth. We have a list of stuff. But yeah, I mean, if there's any of these issues, we typically recommend opening up in the GitHub repository, either for the CLI or for the JavaScript libraries, depending on what is more correlating to the question. And then once we get those issues open and we have discussions, we can actually surface those to the Cognito team so they kind of see that the customer feedback is there, and it makes it an easier case for us to try to make stuff happen. And we want to get to more Amplify questions, but let's switch back over to a DA question and then we'll get back because this is from Kurt, who is actually on our team, and he now was on our team, and now he works with Apollo. And the question, and he's also in the same role, so as a developer advocate. So because each day can look so different, how do you prioritize what you focus on? And Kyle and Ali, I'm kind of curious what your take is on this.
Okay, so I'll go. So in regards to prioritization, I just try to stay on top of like what I think is going to have the most impact. Like for me, I'm trying to be present on 3 different platforms: iOS, Android, and Flutter, and then I try to rotate that content out. But in regards to like prioritization, it's just like I also try to just whatever I'm in the mood, however. Like I try to let the creativity just guide me, because I don't want to make it feel like I'm forced to work on anything specific. I just kind of want to be working on the thing that I am in the mood for. And like sometimes I don't feel like working on iOS. I want to work on Android or vice versa or whatever it is. So that's kind of how I choose to prioritize things. It's like, how do I feel that day? Okay, I want to work on this platform. Let me see how I could help there. And then I'll either start working on a video, once again, go to the Discord for that specific channel, or, you know, something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, I typically, lately at least, have become overwhelmed with all the things that I have to do as part of my job. So I'm kind of trying to be a little more organized. And for me, like, success would be just being able to answer questions on Twitter, answer my emails, answer some questions in the Slack and the Discord, you know, be on GitHub again, like a little bit more, and then maybe accomplish like one thing that is not related to communication. So that would be either me creating like a code base that I can share, or me creating a video, or me creating a blog post. So like one thing a week for me at this point is pretty good, because while I'm doing that one thing, I'm also often working towards multiple things. So like if I create like a GitHub repo with some reference architecture, I might also be writing a talk or putting together a slide deck for a talk I'm giving. And like that is happening in tandem. So like at the end of the month, I'll probably have, you know, more than 4 things done, but focusing on one thing at a time just seems to work well for me, and it helps me stay focused and stuff. But let's see here. We have some other stuff going on in here. I'm kind of behind on these chat questions. We'll probably hang out until about 10 minutes after the hour, so we can only get a couple more questions in here. But someone mentioned, so what are some upcoming channels you see taking off for developer content? What are your thoughts on short sequence platforms like TikTok? I mean, there's so many different good YouTubers and stuff out there that I like to watch. Coding Cat is on here, but there's tons of them. I don't really know. I think it depends on like what your interest is, but I would say that as far as platforms like TikTok, I'm kind of feeling Clubhouse right now, like we mentioned earlier, for that authenticity. It's a new thing, and who knows if it'll be around a year from now, but for right now, it seems pretty cool.
Yeah, there are some developer advocates using TikTok, like Scott Hanselman right now, and I think it's pretty fun, but I don't know. It definitely intimidates me. I'm not great at video content in general, so all that kind of scares me.
The vertical screen it makes it hard for me. I've been thinking about trying to jump into that space with YouTube Shorts, but yeah, it's just kind of hard when it comes to code. I think it would have to be more along the lines of like a theory type video, but I'm still thinking about it.
Yeah, we hear a lot of people talking about CDK as well, along with Amplify. And I think Amplify and CDK actually pair really well together. So if you need the extensibility that Amplify doesn't provide, and you're okay with writing your own infrastructure as code, I'm a big fan of CDK, and I have a couple of workshops and YouTube videos about that. I'm putting together something right now. And I think a really nice like approach to CDK in a serverless fashion is to set up an AppSync API with CDK, and then map the GraphQL operations to a Lambda function. And then from there, you have access to all of AWS, and you can write your own business logic, and it's a really sweet stack. And it's pretty simple to put together on Amplify as well. But in general, I like that stack.
Do you pull that out as 2 separate applications that you deploy, or do you deploy everything at once with your Amplify application?
I will either use Amplify CLI with Amplify Client, or I'll use Amplify Client with CDK as the infrastructure as code provider. And rarely do I mix the two, but I mean, we have a lot of customers that end up needing to mix the two because they start off on Amplify and they want to keep the stuff that they have on Amplify CLI there, but they want to maybe add like an environment variable, or they want to add something that Amplify doesn't support, and they want to write it in CDK, and then they end up with a combination, which has worked pretty well. So is Twitch hosted on AWS? I think it is, right? I mean, Twitch is owned by AWS now, and you can actually build your own Twitch using something called IVS, Interactive Video Service, really easily. And a Like, I'm not exaggerating when I say really easily. I got something set up in like 1 minute, and then you have a stream key and all this stuff. It's pretty sweet. I would check it out if you're interested in that
Just
stuff.
be careful on pricing.
Yeah, any service is going to be a little bit pricey. Well, I mean, I think it depends what you're using it for. If you're using it for like a conference where you're kind of like building a conference platform, it would be considered inexpensive. If you're using it for like a platform where everyone that signs up gets their own stream, it would end up becoming expensive really quickly.
Right.
So if you open like a social network and you have like 1 million users, you're going to need to ask for $1 billion from your investors.
I felt really bummed. I did a video tutorial for AWS's plugin for the video side of things, and somebody hit me up and said they got a $4,000 bill, and I was like, I warned
Whoa.
everyone, like, please be careful.
What service was it? It couldn't have been IVS. It had to have been
No.
like Media Live or something.
It was, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, interactive IVS, even if you left it on, it's not going to be that much, even close. Yeah, I think so. Like, that service is great, but it's essentially like what you could build a news network like CNN on or something like that at that scale. So we'll get this question. We might go into maybe one more Amplify thing, and we'll probably call it a wrap. So, how much of your content that you create is for DevRel versus personal brand?
Well, I just looked over like the past 10 videos that I put out, and half of them are like related to Amplify. But in general, I kind of just strive for like 3 out of 10 pieces of content that I put out would be ideally, Amplify related, because I try to put out content as much as I can. I'm trying to put out a video almost every day. So I think about 3 out of 10 would be a good fit for me, but it can vary. It just depends on like where I'm at. And like I said, I let how I feel that day kind of dictate like what I'm going to put out that day.
Yeah, I think it depends. I don't know if there's necessarily a number here. I guess I have the Ladybug podcast, which we don't necessarily talk about Amplify that often, although Amplify was a sponsor for a while. But we are doing like an episode on cloud computing this season. So I guess that's kind of related, but for the most part, that is a little bit separate. But then I feel like most of my stuff recently has been at least tangentially related to DevRel stuff, but I think it goes in cycles.
So one of the things that we put in place within our team when I kind of was given the opportunity to be more of like in a leadership role was to like explicitly say that a big part of this role is to continue focusing on your own self and your own content that has nothing to do with the job, for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you leave this role in the future, I want to make sure everyone's still like successful in their own career. And then being too closely tied to one thing often, if it doesn't fit your brand especially, is going to be like hurtful. So like I want everyone to be successful if they're here or if they're not here. And then second of all, if you're focusing on yourself and growing your brand and like, growing your audience, that will ultimately make our team more successful, right? Because you have more people that are following you. So like we put like a target of like 30 to 60% of content. And we don't really monitor that, but that's just kind of a general idea of like what we're expecting to see type of stuff. So like I could spend really 70% of my time doing non-AWS related content and everyone would be cool with that. I think that seems to be like a fair approach. I've heard other places have like rules that kind of basically don't let you do anything outside of their own company. I think that's terrible, personally.
Yeah, that's a no for me.
I think the amazing part about AWS is even though they're a massive company, or a company within a company almost, the way that they treat their developers and how you guys hire and everything. Nice, Renee. How you guys hire is absolutely wonderful. Like I work for an amazing company in West Michigan, and our values and our core beliefs align so much with AWS that I don't think you could have a great dev advocacy program without having that piece to it and allowing people to be themselves and create content for themselves too. So sorry, Renee totally threw me off. I almost lost everything there.
Quick plug for the Amplify Discord. Someone asked about that, so I'm going to just drop a link. It's right here. And we are hiring. So Renee did that. So go to the just Google AWS jobs and then search for AWS Amplify. We have like a huge number of headcount open right now. We're hiring for all types of different roles. Yes, you will be seeing more low code and no code stuff coming from us. Really interesting stuff coming. Actually, I can't really speak to it because some of it's early days, some of it's actually being added to the admin UI. So just keep an eye out for that stuff. Single table design. Sorry, I'm kind of like trying to knock over a few more of these before we wrap it up. Single table design. So by default, we generate resolvers that do not approach the single table design. But me and Rick Houlihan have actually built, single table design into Amplify and into AppSync on a live stream. And really, it comes down to just you writing your own resolvers. And we're hoping to make that a lot easier soon with JavaScript resolvers. So if you want to do single table design, a lot of people are doing it with Amplify. You just have to write your own business logic, which kind of, you would have to do anyway, I guess, if you're writing your own API. But you can still take advantage of GraphQL. So yeah. I think that's it. And Ben, we didn't really get like an intro from you because you kind of came on towards the end. I wouldn't mind just if you introduce yourself before we wrap it up.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Ben. I work at a company called Cloudar, where I'm doing mostly consulting. Also part of the Community Builders, so pretty active on Twitter, writing blog posts, trying to do stuff like that. So mostly more focused on the back end and operational side of things. But there's a big overlap because there's also a big focus on serverless and like services are services, right? Even if it's maybe more focused to front-end development or more focused to an operational side, like getting it easier to use AWS is a goal of all those things.
Well, I appreciate you joining, and I really thought this was really cool to kind of have some community builders in here, and we definitely want to have you all back next time we do this, and maybe even have like a Brady Bunch panel next time with even more people, which would be cool.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, any parting words before we wrap it up from anyone? Any plugs? All right. Well, keep an eye out for the next one. We'll probably do another one of these. Maybe we'll start doing these like once a month. If you want to kind of learn more about Amplify, check out our Discord server. We have a lot of discussions in there. I try to be present at least once or twice a week. Also, check out the Community Builders program if you're interested. And thank you for watching. I hope everyone has a great rest of their week.
Thanks.